The rain had been falling since noon, turning the highway into a slick black ribbon that gleamed under my headlights. My GPS said I was only an hour from my destination, a tiny lakeside inn where I planned to spend a quiet weekend fishing, far from deadlines and ringing phones. But then the detour came. A bright orange sign flashing road closed and a crooked arrow pointing toward a smaller road vanishing into the trees. I cursed under my breath, slowed, and turned. The pavement ended after 5 miles, replaced by cracked asphalt that crumbled into gravel. Then even that gave way to dirt, and soon my tires were spitting mud as the road narrowed, curling like a snake through the pines. The storm grew heavier. Wind whipped the branches into claws that scraped against my windshield. The wipers thudded back and forth, barely keeping up. The GPS froze. No signal, no map, just a gray screen in a spinning circle. I told myself not to panic. The detour had to lead somewhere. But the deeper I drove, the stranger it felt. The trees pressed closer, their trunks black and slick, their crowns blotting out the sky. The world outside my headlights dissolved into darkness, so thick it felt like water. And then I saw it. A sign, crooked, splintered, its paint peeling to ghosts. Hollow's End, 2 miles. I frowned. I'd never heard of it. No such name on the map when I checked last night. Still, 2 miles meant people. Maybe even a gas station. I could ask for directions, get back on track. So I drove on. The first house appeared at the bend of the road, crouched under the weight of a sagging roof. Its windows were black holes, curtains rotted to ribbons. Beyond it, more shapes loomed through the rain, a cluster of buildings hunched like old men, their spines bent, their faces peeling. The road widened into what might have once been a square. A fountain squatted in the center, choked with weeds. A church spire speared the clouds, its bell tower cracked and leaning. And on the steps of that church, a figure stood. Tall, thin, dressed in black from neck to boots, a wide-brimmed hat shadowing his face. He didn't move as my car rolled past. Didn't wave. Didn't even flinch when my headlights swept over him. Just watched. I turned the wheel, pulling up in front of what looked like a general store. Its windows were dusty, its sign faded, Hollow's Mercantile. The figure on the church steps was still there. Watching. I killed the engine. The silence slammed down like a hammer. No cars. No voices. No sound but the rain ticking on the roof. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out. The air was heavy, tasting of rust and wet earth. The store door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, the dim light from the windows fell across rows of shelves sagging under cans and boxes. Everything looked ancient. Labels yellowed, tins streaked with rust. Hello, my voice sounded too loud. For a moment, nothing. Then a shadow moved at the far end of the counter. An old man rose from a chair, his spine bending, his hands knotted with veins. His suit was black and shiny with age, the kind you see in old photographs. Afternoon, he said, though it was nearly dusk. His voice rasped like dry leaves. I tried to smile. Sorry to bother you. Roads closed on Route 7. My GPS died. And I think I'm a little lost. The man's eyes, pale and cloudy as milk, slid over me, slow as syrup. Ain't lost, he said. Road brought you here. Something in his tone made the back of my neck crawl. Well, yeah, I guess it did. Is there another way to get back to the highway? The old man's lips twitched. Might have been a smile. Highway's far. Closer to stay the night. I shook my head. I just need directions. I've got a reservation at. You'll stay, he said softly. Storm's bad. Roads wash out. Best not to fight what's coming. Before I could answer, the door creaked behind me. I turned. A woman stood there, her dress long and gray, her hair pulled tight, her face pale as paper. She didn't blink, didn't smile, just stared, and then I noticed the strangest thing. The clock on the wall above the counter. Its hands were frozen at 11:57. And every other clock I could see, on the shelves, on the far wall, was the same. 11:57. The woman by the door didn't move. She just stood there, dripping rain onto the warped floorboards, her gray dress clinging to her bones. Her eyes, black as ink, rimmed with something that might have been soot, stayed fixed on me like pins through a butterfly. I forced a smile, tried for polite evening. Her head tilted slow, like she was studying something fragile. Then, without a word, she walked past me to the counter. The old man didn't glance at her, didn't speak, just watched me with that pale, clouded stare. I cleared my throat. You got a payphone here? Or Wi-Fi? Anything like that? The man chuckled. The sound was dry, brittle, like twigs snapping in frost. No callin' out from Hollow's End. I frowned. Right. Figures. The woman set something on the counter, a jar of cloudy liquid with what looked like roots floating inside. Her hands were thin, fingers long and stiff like sticks. The old man rang her up on an iron cash register so old it belonged in a museum. It clanged once, spitting out a paper receipt yellow as parchment. Neither of them spoke, neither looked at me. I backed toward the door, the hair prickling on my arms. Thanks anyway, I muttered. The bell above the door gave a brittle jingle as I stepped out into the rain. The figure on the church steps was gone. Dash dash dash. The storm had gotten worse, the wind tearing at my jacket, the rain stinging like needles. I splashed through puddles to my car, heart hammering, wanting nothing more than to leave this place behind. I slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and jammed the key into the ignition. Click. I tried again. Click. The engine coughed once, then fell silent. Come on, I hissed, twisting the key until my wrist ached. Nothing. The headlights flickered once before dying completely, plunging me into darkness. I sat there, rain roaring on the roof, breath fogging the glass, telling myself not to panic. The old man said the storm was bad. Maybe the wires were down. Maybe my battery gave out in the cold. I'd find help. Someone here had to have a phone. A tow truck. Something. I shoved the door open and stepped into the street. It was empty. The houses crouched in the gloom, their windows blind and black. The rain blurred everything into shifting shapes, the shadows twitching at the corners of my vision. Then I saw them, people, standing at the edge of the square. Half a dozen figures, dressed in the same old-fashioned clothes, dark suits, long skirts, high collars. Men with hats pulled low. Women with hair braided tight. All of them still as stones. And all of them watching me. Dash dash dash. I forced my legs to move, splashing through puddles toward the nearest building, a low house with sagging eaves and a light burning faint in the window. The door opened before I could knock. A man stood there, tall and gaunt, his face pale as bone, his eyes sunk deep. He wore a black vest over a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows like he'd just come from some endless chore. Lost? He asked. His voice was soft, almost kind, but it slithered through me like a draft. Car broke down, I said. You got a phone I can use? He smiled then, slow, thin. Ain't no phone here. Ain't no phone nowhere near. My stomach sank. Okay. Maybe you got a mechanic in town. Or someone who can give me a ride. The man stepped aside. Best come in out the rain. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But the storm lashed the street like whips, and behind me, the figures still stood. Watching. I stepped inside. The house smelled of smoke and something sweet and rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun. The walls were bare wood, dark and scarred. A fire burned low in the hearth, throwing long shadows that crawled up the ceiling. A woman sat in a chair by the fire, her hands folded in her lap, her dress the color of ashes. Her head turned slow when I entered, her eyes flat and cold as coins. "This is my wife, Miriam," the man said. "I'm Ezra." I nodded, my throat dry. "Thanks for letting me in. I just need to figure out how to get out of here." Ezra's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Ain't no hurry," he said. "Storm'll pass by mornin'. Till then, you'll sit and take supper with us. I really don't want to impose." "Weren't no offer," Miriam said. Her voice was soft, but it hit like a nail. I stared at her. She didn't blink. Neither did Ezra. The table was already set when they led me into the dining room. 2 places, now 3. Plates yellowed with age, silverware dull and pitted. A roast of something dark sat in the center, steaming faintly, its smell thick and cloying. "Sit," Ezra said. I sat. Miriam began to carve the meat, her hands pale and steady. She set a slab on my plate, red juices pooling like blood. I forced a smile. "Looks great. What is it?" Ezra's grin widened. "Old recipe. Been in the family long as there's been a family." I picked up my fork, my stomach twisting. The meat was gray, stringy, riddled with veins. I took a bite. It was cold, metallic. I swallowed hard, bile burning my throat, and set the fork down. The clock on the wall ticked once. I froze, then looked closer. Its hands were fixed at 11:57. Same as the one in the store. Same as the one in the square. "Funny thing," I said, trying for light. "All your clocks stopped." Ezra's smile didn't move. "Clocks don't matter here," he said. Miriam's voice slid through the silence like a blade. "Not since the day time died." I didn't finish the meat. I couldn't. The taste clung to my tongue like rust, bitter and wrong. Ezra and Miriam ate in silence, their movements slow and deliberate, knives whispering across plates. I tried to speak, to ask about the storm, the road, anything, but my voice died under their stare. When the plates were empty, Miriam rose without a word and cleared the table. Ezra leaned back in his chair, folding his long hands across his chest. "You'll sleep here," he said. It wasn't a question. I appreciate that," I stammered. "But my car'll keep," he said. "Ain't goin' nowhere." The way he said it made my stomach twist. I nodded, because what else could I do? The room they gave me was small, its walls paneled in dark wood that smelled faintly of mildew. A narrow bed crouched against one wall, a quilt thrown across it like a shroud. The single lamp cast more shadows than light. Ezra stood in the doorway, his eyes fixed on me. "Best lock your door," he said softly. "Keep out the wanderers." Before I could ask what he meant, he shut the door. I stood there, listening to his footsteps fade. Then the house fell silent. I tried the window first. It was nailed shut. The glass was rippled, old and cloudy, the kind that turned the night outside into a smear of black and silver. I pressed my forehead to it, straining to see. The street was empty. But then, movement, shapes. Dozens of them, slipping between the houses like smoke. Men in black hats, women in gray dresses, children clutching rag dolls with faces rubbed blank. They moved without sound, their bare feet whispering over wet earth, their heads all turned toward the church at the center of the square. The doors gaped open now, spilling yellow light like bile. And inside that light, something shifted. Something tall. Something waiting. I turned from the window, my pulse a drum in my throat. The door. I had to try the door. The knob turned easily. Too easily. The hallway yawned empty. I crept down the stairs, each step a scream in my head. The front door was in sight when a voice slid through the dark. "Goin' somewhere, Ezra." He stood at the bottom of the stairs, his shadow stretching long across the floor, his teeth catching the lamplight like shards of bone. "Just needed some air," I said, my throat raw. "Ain't no air out there," he murmured. "Not for you." Behind him, Miriam appeared, her hands folded, her eyes black and bottomless. "It's time," she whispered. Ezra smiled. "Come see," he said. And before I could run, his hands closed on my shoulders, iron fingers biting deep, and shoved me toward the door. Dash dash dash. The rain had stopped. The sky hung low and swollen, clouds glowing with a sick yellow light. The air was thick, heavy, tasting of wrought and iron. They led me to the square. The whole town was there now, a circle of faces pale as wax, eyes shining like wet stones. The children stood at the front, their dolls dangling, their mouths curled in smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The church doors yawned wide, spilling light across the weeds. Inside, I glimpsed rows of pews warped with age, a pulpit blackened by time. And behind it, a shape moved. Something too tall, too thin. Its head brushed the rafters. Its arms hung like ropes, fingers dragging the floor. The whispers began then, low at first, curling through the crowd like smoke. "He's here. He's come. The hour is nigh." Ezra's hands clamped on my shoulders, steering me forward. "What is this?" I choked. "What the hell is this?" "The end of waiting," Miriam said behind me. "The circle closes," Ezra murmured. Dash dash dash. They pushed me into the church. The doors slammed like a gunshot. Candles burned in the windows, their flames shivering though. There was no wind. The air smelled of tallow and something darker, sweet and foul, like meat gone bad. At the far end, the thing waited. It stepped into the light. Its skin was gray and stretched too tight, ribs sharp as knives, its face a hollow where a face should be. Just darkness, a hole sucking the light. I staggered back. The congregation moved in behind me, their whispers rising to a fever pitch. "Midnight," they breathed, and then I heard it. A bell. 1, 2, 3. Each strike a knife through my skull. I looked at the clock above the pulpit. Its hands were at 11:57. They didn't move, but the bell kept ringing. The bell kept tolling, deep and hollow, echoing through the bones of the church. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. The sound wasn't just in the air. It was inside me, in my teeth, in my skull. The whispers rose to match it, curling around me, pressing into my skin. "Circle closes. Circle closes. He's here. He's ours. Stop," I shouted, but my voice was nothing. A speck drowned in a tide. The thing moved closer. Its limbs bent wrong, elbows jutting like knives, its fingers long as branches. The hole where its face should be pulled at the light, pulling at me, dragging me forward without touch. No. I tried to run, but hands seized me. Ezra's hands, iron and cold. Miriam on the other side, her nails digging into my arm like hooks. "Let me go," I screamed. They didn't answer. They didn't need to, because the whispers answered for them. "He takes the hour. He takes the hour." Dash dash dash. The thing bent low, its head hanging inches from mine. That hole where its face should have been opened wider, wider, until it was all there was, darkness, endless and swallowing. And inside it, I saw them. Faces. Hundreds of them. Mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide and frozen. I saw a man in a suit from another century. A woman in a bonnet. Children clutching toys. All of them hanging in that void like moths in amber. And then I saw myself. Not now. Not here. But older. Gray. Eyes empty. Standing in this same church, hands gripping the shoulders of some other poor bastard as I whispered the words. No, I gasped. No, no, no. The thing touched me. Just a brush of those fingers on my forehead. And the world stopped. Dash dash dash. The whispers cut out. The bell went silent. The air froze, heavy and still. I looked up. The congregation stood like statues, mouths open mid-chant, eyes wide and glassy. The candles were frozen flames. The raindrops hanging in the windows glimmered like beads of glass. Everything had stopped. Everything but me. And the thing. It loomed above me, its head tilting like a question. And then, for the first time, it spoke. Not out loud. Inside my skull. The hour is yours now. I stumbled back, choking on air that didn't move, on silence so thick it roared. What do you want from me? I croaked. The darkness inside its face stretched, and I understood. It didn't want me. It wanted me to stay. Forever. Dash dash dash. When the world moved again, I was outside. Standing in the square. The storm was gone. The sky was black, pricked with stars. The villagers stood around me, silent, watching. Ezra smiled. You'll find your car waitin', he said. Miriam's eyes gleamed like wet stones. Road's clear now, she whispered. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just walked. Back to the house. Back to the car that now started on the first turn of the key. Back to the road that wound away through the woods, smooth and dry as if there'd never been rain. Dash dash dash. I drove until the sun bled over the horizon, until I hit pavement, until the trees gave way to gas stations and neon signs in the world I knew. I told myself I'd never go back. I told myself I'd forget. But 3 nights later, I woke to find the clock on my wall stopped. At 11:57, and in the dark, something whispered. Your turn's comin', boy.